Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's Q&A session of Friday Fundamentals. My name is Colin Moore, and for the next 45 minutes, I'll be taking you through a number of useful tools in SoftPlan. Now, we had a number of submissions throughout the week, and we chose the ones that we thought would be the most helpful to you all. Now, in this session, the main topics I'll be covering include how to create a custom door and profile pattern. So I've already created a few here just to give you an idea. So here's a few doors that I'd come up with, and a profile you can literally just draw with lines and shapes. And so I'll also be bringing you through importing symbols. So for instance, I've imported a sports car here just to give you an idea of some kinds of symbols that we could include just to enhance your drawings and your 3D views. And I'd also gotten a question about importing shutters just to use them as false shutters if you were going to draw them as a symbol onto your floor plan. And we'll also be going through creating tray ceilings and about adjusting the print pen for shadow paint when you go to save an elevation, because initially it may come up a little dark and it may obscure some other parts of the elevation. So for instance, the windows, or just obscure other details so they're not as prominent. So we'll be going through that as well. So what I want to start with actually is the print pen for the shadow paint. So initially, if you look at this plan set page, when you add the saved elevation, the paint's coming out a bit dark. So it's just, you may want to lighten that up a bit. So what we initially had done, so we'd gone with our front elevation. So we take this 3D view, which you can open from this option here on the navigation bar on the left. And so when you have this loaded, to save this as a line drawing, you just need to go up to File, Save, Save As, SoftPlan drawing. So this will convert this 3D view to lines and shapes. And so from here, you just need to enter a name for the drawing. I'm just going to type in this. And so you're given an option for the sun shadow paint. So that's what this question is in regards to. So when we choose to say yes here, now I'm not going to choose to completely generate that just because it takes a bit longer than normal, just because it's a very detailed front elevation, but I have the save drawing right here. So this is what you would get when you save that 3D view. Now it looks pretty nice. It's the lighter shade that you saw on the plan set, but what controls the color of the paint itself is the print pen. So this is how it would display when it prints, because we're on this plan set page over here. So what we need to do, if we go to edit this paint, we notice that the print pen is set to by layer. So it's controlled by the layer that this paint is put on. Now to check what layer the paint is on currently, we just need to go up to this Common tab. And so it's under a layer called Sun Shadow Paint. And so to view all of the layers that were created in this elevation drawing, we just need to go up to Options, Layer Setup. And so we're looking for the layer called Sun Shadow Paint. So it's at the very bottom here. And we can see that the print pen is currently set to 3, which is set to print as black. That's why it was so dark on the plan set page. Now by default, pen 16 is automatically gray, just by default. So we can set it to pen 16, press OK, and so that will affect all the paint that was on the sun shadow paint layer. So as soon as we save this and go to the elevation on the plan set page, so we can see it's a lot lighter. Now if you wanted to review the colors and the settings, the colors and the thicknesses for the pens, we can go to the drawing options. So on this front elevation drawing, we can go into the drawing options. And so near the bottom is your pen setup. And so to view pens 1 through 16, we just need to go to Configure Print Pen Styles. And so here it displays all of the settings for the current print pens. So pens 1 through 15 is by default black. And you can see you can also specify thickness. But pen 16 by default is gray. Now if you wanted this to be a little lighter or even change the color completely, that's definitely an option for you. And since we are in the drawing options, just to let you know that this will only apply to this current drawing. So it's not going to affect your main floor or any other elevation drawings you may have saved. And so just to clarify how I got this added to the plan set page, when you have a plan set page created, you can simply drag and drop the drawing from the navigation bar and place it onto this page. And so then you can proceed with editing it, and you could change the scale if you'd like. You can move it around. You can set the rotation. And if it was your main floor, for example, you could choose to have floor system mode display or roof mode display. It's really great in that respect. It's very easy to add and manipulate drawings to be printed. Next, I'll be walking you through creating the custom door and profile. So I've already started a few down here, and I just wanted to show you how I do that. So the first step, say for a custom door, I'll start with this item. So we need to create the elevation opening. So that's just how it's going to display in elevation. So here we just need to go to the Draw tab, go to Detail, and I'm going to start with this quarter round door, as that was the specific question that was asked. So I figured I should go over that. And so we can draw this quarter round shape. Now initially it is a window, but it's easy enough to convert that to a door. So if we go to draw a quarter round, it's just a matter of tracing that using a selection box. So this is what we start with. Now when we go to edit this, we can change the width and the height. So if the door was going to be 6'8", for example, and then a width of 3 feet, we can set that up here. We don't want frame along the bottom. Now the bead is basically what would make this glazing in the middle. So we don't want a bead here, and we just want it to be a solid door. And then finally, we just need to turn off the grill. And so here's our quarter round door at the moment. Now I went a step further over here and added some door glazing. So that was another option when we went to Draw, Detail, Opening Shapes. And so we can choose to add some door glazing as well. So here from within this door, we can go ahead and trace some glazing up here. And we can choose to edit that if we wanted to, say for instance, add some more grills. If we wanted to add one more horizontal, choose to have 2 instead. And then of course if we wanted to have it arced at the top or anything like that, we can edit that right in here. So we have our elevation opening created, so now we can save it to the elevation opening library. So we would need to go into the system options and then the system library. And so under the library type, we want to change that to elevation openings. Now what I've done here is create a custom library. You can see I've already created a few just as an example. So here to save this one to the library, you want to go to One Step. Then we just draw a box around this elevation opening you've created. So at this point, it found all the items I drew, and you can enter in a name for it. So now this has been added to the elevation opening library, and we can go ahead and create an opening. So to do that, just change the library type, still in the system options, the system library. We want to go from this pull down, choose openings. And I've created a custom library here as well to save it. So here we need to choose the one-step command, and so this is going to create our opening, and we need it to reference our custom elevation opening. So we need to click on one of these fields here and choose our arch door 2. So we can call this new door. And one other thing we might need to change, depending if you're creating an opening or a door, or my mistake, a window or a door, we just need to choose from this pull down the second option. Then we can press OK. And then if there were any other settings that we wanted to change in this opening, so if we did want to make a last minute change on the width or the height, we can definitely do that. Now in this case, I'm actually going to adjust the hardware offset. So that's just the door, or the door handle, and how high it's offset from the bottom of the door. So I'm going to set this to 30 and press OK. So now we'll be able to add that door to this drawing and to any other drawings using this installation. So if we go to Draw Opening and we go to add our new door, you can see it's even giving us a preview of what it will look like in 3D. We can go ahead and press OK and then add it to one of our walls. And so just to see what it looks like, I've already generated a 3D view of the outside. There we go. So we can see our door's been added there. And so that's generally how you would create custom openings. Now, if you did want to start with an existing elevation opening, that's an option as well, instead of starting from scratch. So if you went to Draw, Detail, Elevation Openings, you could choose an existing one that we have in there already. So if we wanted to start with this this cottage elevation opening, you could draw this first. Then all you would need to do is explode this, just so that it's now this elevation opening that's that you can manipulate. So here we can adjust the width, the height, and add other components to it if need be. And so we can also create custom profiles. So I've already created one here. But what we can start with is just simply drawing the profile with lines or other shapes depending on the look you were kind of hoping to achieve. So in this case, I just used simple lines, and of course we can unlock the cursor just to draw on an angle. So I just pressed F12 on my keyboard to do that, but you can also press this lock icon up here, or simply hold down the control key and press A as an apple. So here we have some angled lines. So we have our profile here. It's very simple. It's not the prettiest, but when you have the profile drawn and you have that created just the way you'd like, we just need to go into the system library. And this time for the library type, we need to change this to profiles. So here we could choose to save this profile into any existing library that we have listed here, or you can add your own. Now in this case, I'm going to save it into the crown mold library. Now again, it doesn't really matter which one you want to save it into, but as long as you highlight whichever library you want to save it into, then you just need to press the one-step command and draw a selection box around the profile you created. And so here we can enter in a name. And press OK. So then you could use this if you're going to add banding, for example, or if you were going to use this for the crown molding, you could do that as well. So just to give you an example, so in our system options, there's an option to choose your finishing options. So just up here, so if we were going to change, if we wanted this to be a part of our banding, so one of the options when you go to draw banding onto a floor plan, we just need to go to banding options and choose one of the existing presets. So if we wanted to start with banding 18 and apply this custom profile, we can enter in a new name for it. We can specify a default material. And so here we can choose our custom profile. So I'd save this under crown mold. And so here's the custom profile right here. So we can simply press OK. Save it in the system. Now whenever we go to draw banding, we'll be able to see what was banding 18 before. We now have it listed as custom 1, and so there's our custom profile there. And so we'll also be going through creating tray ceilings, so I can kind of walk you through that as well. So where we want to start is in interior mode, and so we can draw our bulkhead. So here I switched to interior mode from the mode bar. And then we can go to add our bulkhead. So in this case, I'm going to choose the tray preset. And so we can choose to manually trace it along these 4 walls, or we can use the auto trace, which should find this enclosure and automatically place it. So when we go to edit this bulkhead here, we can set the thickness, we can set the height if we needed to change that. Now in this case, I think this is a pretty good size, so we can leave it at that. And so I also have a 3D view of the master bedroom. So we can see where a bulkhead was added. So right now, the top of the bulkhead is flush with the top of the wall. Now what we can do, if we wanted the bottom of the bulkhead to be flush with the top of the wall, we just need to adjust this offset. So the reason why the offset was initially 6 inches is basically it's just sitting 6 inches down. It's just in reference from the bottom of the bulkhead. So if we wanted to have the bottom of the bulkhead sit at the top of the wall, we just need to set it to 0. There we go. So we have that sitting up a little higher. And now just for reference, when we draw on the ceiling, right now we have a 9-foot wall and a 1'2" offset. So right now it'll be 10'2" for the wall, just for the overall height, plus 6 inches for this bulkhead, because this bulkhead has a height of 6 inches. So now we can go to ceiling mode and add the ceiling in the middle. So when we go to ceiling mode to draw in the ceiling to fill in the space in the middle of the bulkhead's not going to be visible by default. So what I've done is in options and visible items, I've turned it on here. So we can go to interiors and just make sure the bulkhead is checked. That way you know where to trace your ceiling if you want to be precise when you're generating a soft list report. So here we can just simply manually trace in the ceiling, and you don't have to be exact in your first trace because we can always adjust the ceiling edges afterwards. There we go. So that's pretty close. So we can generate a 3D view now just to give you an idea. Now the ceiling is going to be sitting pretty low, so we will have to manually offset that up. So if we edit the ceiling in 3D, so it's currently sitting at 8 feet, but as we'd seen before, our walls are 9 feet plus a 1'2" offset, so that's 10'2" plus a 6-inch bulkhead, so it's 10'8" total. So we'll need to set this to 10'8", then that should offset it up. There we go, just to sit inside that bulkhead. And so that's generally how to create a tray ceiling, and if you did want to go a step further, you could add a hole into this ceiling up here and just continue adding another bulkhead just to get another level of your tray ceiling. It's just a matter of getting the offsets right, but that's what we have the 3D views for, so that you can see where these items are sitting relative to each other. Now there was a question in the chat about when I went to the first elevation. So this here was a generated elevation view, so I just went to one of these arrows over here, in this case the front arrow, just a matter of double clicking that, and that will place the camera so it's looking straight on the front of your building, and it just generates this 3D view. So this is a live view right now, so if I was going to edit or erase an item, it would update in this view. But what I had done is save this as a line drawing, and so when you do go to File, Save, and choose to save it as a SoftPlan drawing, then it would convert this 3D view to shapes, and then it places those generated drawings down here. So in the category under elevations and then drawings. And so now I can go through how to import symbols into SoftPlan. So it's a pretty common question in support. If there isn't a symbol that we have, how do you bring it into the program? And so I have a couple examples here, like I'd said before. So if we wanted to just have a false shutter on the outside of your building without needing to have an opening there. So we do have the 3D files of our default shutters that you could use if you wanted to. So it's just a matter of importing that 3D file using the symbol wizard. And so I've given you the location here. So if you did go to the 3D symbols shutters folder, you could locate one of these DWGs, one of your choosing, and then choose to import that into one of your symbol libraries, so you could just simply add it on the outside of one of your walls. And so I'll give you an example of how to do that. So once you have that shuttered file on your computer, or you have it saved somewhere, I put it on my desktop so that I can easily access it. But at this point, we want to go into the system library, and we're going to import it as a symbol. So we want to change the library type to symbols. And so I have already created a custom library here. So we can go into the symbol wizard, and we can call this custom shutter. And so the 2D symbol where you'll be accessing it from when you go to draw symbol will be in this custom library that I created, but you can definitely change that and choose to save it elsewhere. You could put it under the miscellaneous folder or whichever one of your choosing. And now in the case where you did have the plan view of the symbol already on screen, you could choose to use that as a part of the symbol, but in this case we don't, so we're going to need to generate one. So now it's asking for the 3D symbol or the 3D file, and so I just have that on my desktop, so we can choose to import this. And we're just going to browse to my desktop and choose this symbol here. So I just chose the louver panel uneven, which you could find in that 3D Symbols Shutters folder. And so then we just need to choose where the 3D aspect of the symbol is going to be saved. And so again, we also have a number of libraries to choose from, but I chose one that's called Custom, and you can create your own as well. There we go. And so since it's a fairly simple symbol, it just took a second or two to generate. So then we can see a preview of what it will look like when we go to add it to a 3D view. So we can press Next. And so here's where we choose the orientation. And so right now it will tell you, well, it gives you what it thinks the top and the front and the sides would be. And so it looks like these are actually correct. But it's just a matter of verifying that just in case. But we can press Next. And if we did want to change the default texture of this symbol, this is where we could do that. So there are a number of layers that we could change the color of. So right now it's kind of an army green almost. So we could change that to a light brown. And so that's for the louvers. And so we could go into the panel and do something similar and just make it more of a brown color. But again, that could just be quickly changed in a 3D view if you wanted to change it to something else, or even make it a wood texture. But in this case, I'm just going to make it brown. And then we can choose the size of the symbol as it would be when you place it. So by default, we have here a 4-foot height, and then it also set the width and the depth. So if you did want to change that, now's the time to do it. So then we can press Next, so we have the size done. And all of these options, some would pertain to some symbols, other ones they wouldn't. So in this case, we would want it to reference the 0, and if we did want it to sit up a little higher by default, so if we want it to be 3 feet up, we can specify that here. So now when we ever place that into a drawing, it's going to automatically be set to an offset of 3 feet. And then whether or not we want it included in soft list, and we don't want it to ignore walls because we actually want it to snap to the walls if we draw it close to a wall. And then we can also specify whether it's going to extract an elevation or section. In this case, we might want to keep it, so it's extracting an elevation, so I'm going to keep that checked. Then press OK. And so now we're just going to be generating the 2D version of the symbol. So just what you'll see in Plan when you go to add it. So in this case, it's just a simple rectangle. So that didn't take long at all to generate. So we can press Next, and that's it for the symbol wizard. So now we can go and add this shutter somewhere on our drawing and to any project that we open in this install. So if we go to Draw Symbol, we just go into the Custom library. This is the shutter that we just created. So we could go OK. Could place that along a wall, and then we can. So if we were to edit this right now, you could see that it is actually going to be represented in 3D as well. And it also has that offset of 3 feet that we set, and the 0 reference that we specified. So if we went to the exterior view, just need to rotate around. There we go. So there's the shutter that we imported. Now, just in case we didn't have the symbol that you could use, there's a lot of online databases that you could grab these 3D files from. So generally, we recommend importing either SKP, 3ds, or DWG files. And so what I've done, I've went to a website called SketchUp 3D Warehouse, which you could just do a simple online search for. And I chose a sports card that I imported already. Just because of the detail, it took a few minutes to generate the plan view and to choose the orientation. But I also imported a second symbol, and it's just a matter of downloading this SKP file, saving it somewhere to your computer, and then we can import it right into SoftPlan. So next I'm going to import one of these files, and it's going to be the same process, even though it's a different file type, so it's an SKP rather than DWG, but I'll show you that as we go along. So back into the the system library, set the library type to symbols, and again, we're going to save it in here, just into the custom library, and we can call this window bars. So it's just an accent for windows if they were going to be placed on the first floor of, say, a more high-traffic commercial residential area. And so we don't have a plan view on the screen, so we can press No again. And here we can choose where to find that 3D file. So here, again, just on my desktop, I have this window bars file saved. You choose where you want the 3D aspect to be saved as well. There we go. So this is what I was talking about here. So it's just a matter of going online, finding a file if you're choosing. Again, the site we normally recommend is SketchUp 3D Warehouse. It's a great place to find a lot of custom symbols that you could import right into SoftPlan and see in 2D and 3D. So we can press Next. Now in this case, the orientation isn't perfect. So we can see it thinks the front is actually the right side. So we're actually going to need to correct this. So we just need to say no, that they're not correct. Press Next. So now it's asking which one's going to be the top of the symbol. Now in this case, yes, this is the top, so we can press Next. And we actually want this to be the front. There we go. So then it reoriented the views, and so now it looks like we can press Next for the here and then verify that they're correct. Press Next. And we could go through the textures and change it, but I kind of like the black here, so we're going to keep going. Press Next. And finally, we can choose the size. If we did want to make this a little larger, if we want to increase the width to 4 feet instead. And so we can choose where it wants to reference. I'm just going to choose 0 in this case. Offset 3 feet up again, because it's most likely going to go on the outside of a window. I'll choose to keep elevation checked. We want to make sure that it does reference or recognize walls when it's drawing close to it. So we can press Next. So here it's going to generate the 2D view of the symbol like we went through before. And so that's it for that symbol. So now we can choose to draw that. So here it is right here. So just in the custom library where I chose to save it. So we could add it here, for example. And so because it was set to recognize walls, it actually snapped right to the outside of the brick. So we just need to update this 3D view. So there we go. There we have our symbol here. And of course, it's not going to be perfect because all windows are most likely going to be a bit different. So we could edit this and further adjust the depth, the width, and the height. So we could go ahead and make this 4 foot 6 wide if we want it to be a little further. Now in this case, this window has shutters, so it might get in the way. So if we did want to turn that off for this opening, it's just a matter of editing this opening and then turning off any shutters that may have been added to it. Now this project that I'm using right now is just the Drawing a House project that comes with the SoftPlan 2016 program. So just in case you wanted to play around with it, this is the drawing that I'm using. And then we may want it to be offset a little lower. So it's just a matter of editing the symbol, unchecking cleanup, and maybe setting it to 2'9", for example, if we want these bars to sit a bit lower, or if we want them below the sill. So everything is basically customizable in this case. And then we might need the height to be increased to 5'6". Just a matter of playing around with it first till you get a better idea of it. And so I also generated a 3D view of what it could look like, some of these symbols that you import. So some of them could have a lot of detail. And so they could really make your 3D views pop, make them that much more realistic. So it's a great asset, the SketchUp 3D Warehouse, if you wanted to import some symbols. And now those were the main topics I wanted to cover. Now there are some other questions that we had submitted to us that I can kind of show you and walk you through. So for instance, if you were on your floor plan and you went to electrical mode and you don't know where your notes went, so if you go to electrical mode and your notes disappeared, so all you're seeing is arrows or shapes or anything like that, what it could be is notes could be on their own layer, which you'll need to turn on for this mode, or it may just be a matter of turning on notes in your visible items. So you could go to Options, Visible Items,
And just make sure you turn on, for instance, overview notes in this case, because you saw my notes over here disappeared. So once we turn on the overview notes here and press OK, so then your notes are then visible in this mode. And just to clarify, so the visible items themselves, these will control the visibilities of items on the default layer. And now, besides that, you can turn layers on or off. And so this is independent for each mode. So this would only apply to electrical mode, for example. And so you can see the mode selected in the left column under category. So since we were in electrical mode, when we went to visible items, this is automatically where it goes to. So it knows that you probably want to adjust the visibility for this mode. So that's why it's highlighted here. But we can definitely go and change the visibility of items in drawing mode if we so desire, just from the same menu without having to change the mode and go right back. And another thing that I wanted to cover is turning on or off materials in a 3D view. So if you go to this 3D view and you want to see inside the house, or you just wanted to turn off a specific material, you can do that by going up to the Options tab and going to Material. And so this gives you a list of basically every surface that's being generated in this current view. So for instance, if we wanted to see inside the house, we're going to need to turn off the surfaces relating to the roof. So you can see that we even have them further categorized based on the surfaces that they relate to. So in this case, I highlighted roof, and we can just simply turn off all the fascias, gutters, shingles, sheathing, and soffits, and then simply press OK. So then we can see into the house. Now we can't yet. We're also going to need to turn off the ceiling as well, but just to give you an idea. So we could go back to Options, Material, and in this case, highlight Ceiling, and so turn off any ceiling that we may have. There we go. So we can see directly into our floor plan, and of course there are other surfaces that may be obstructing your view, like this bulkhead here that have been created. You can choose to turn those off as well in your 3D view. And then if you wanted them to turn back on, you can go back to Options, Material, turn on these materials again, and of course, can't forget our ceiling, turn this on as well. Now, in 2016, we actually introduced presentation views, which will do this automatically. So any drawings that you've added to the model, you'll be able to open a presentation view of. So this will give you that dollhouse view, so you'll be able to see right into the house automatically without having to manually turn off those roof and ceiling surfaces. And just so you know, views like this, 3D views and presentation views, they can be dragged and dropped to a plan set page as well if you wanted this represented on a finished print. There we go. So we can see directly into the house. Again, we could just turn off the trays, the bulkheads here, and if we didn't want the sports car to be shown as well, we can turn that off as well. And of course, change the mode if we need to. But so these modes or these presentation views here could just simply be dragged and dropped onto a plan set page that you see over there. And so there was also a question about angling walls and how that's done in the program. So here, when you go to initially draw a wall, say if I was drawing from left to right, regardless of which direction the brick is facing, this is going to be at an angle of 0. Now, if we did want to change the angle of this, you could change it directly from the Edit menu. So if we wanted to make this 90, for example, then it would be vertical in the plan. Now, you can also use, in the Move tab, just simply the Rotate Item command. So we could choose our pivot point, whether it's going to be the center of the wall or one of the ends of the wall, and choose to rotate that. Now, right now, it's at 15-degree increments. If we want it to be more precise in our angle, because you can see here the angle changing. So right now it's at a 45-degree, but say we wanted 43 degrees. We could simply type in 133, for example. Or we could unlock the cursor when we have this Rotate Item command active. So to unlock the cursor, you can press F12. And so now you can see the degrees are much more precise, and it gives you that much more freedom when you're rotating items. But you may find it easier just adjusting the angle from the edit menu if you wanted it to be 270, for example, so straight up and down the page. Excellent. So that brings us through most of what I wanted to talk about. And if you did have anything else that may not have been covered or you just wanted clarification on, feel free to include that in the chat there. And then I'll go into some of the cabinets and some of the options available here in the kitchen, just in case you guys didn't have anything else. So for instance, if you wanted to go to this kitchen immediately and not, say for instance, start from the exterior and might take a minute to take the camera and go to a specific room. Now from Plan, the command I really like to use is either the Quick 3D, which allows you to place the camera and the location which it's facing. So for instance, left-clicking here, and the second left-click will be where it's going to be looking at. So if we wanted to face this kitchen sink, for example, we would click again, and then choose the mode of the 3D view that will be created. Now, I'm just going to cancel out of that for a second. We can also use the Go to Room command. So under the Model tab again, we have a number of rooms created on the floor plan. So if we wanted to go immediately to the master bedroom, we could simply highlight this, and that would generate a 3D view and take the camera to that room. Now, in this case, I'm just going to use this Quick 3D. So again, the camera is going to be placed here just at the entrance to the kitchen, and we're going to be facing this island cabinet. It's going to generate a shaded view. Won't take as long to generate, hopefully. There we go. So now we're right in our kitchen right away, and we can continue editing or making any changes that we wanted to. And you're not limited to setting the mode as soon as you go to the Quick 3D command. You can also choose to change it to textured or something else now that we have the 3D view open. But just to give you some idea of how you can customize cabinets, let's try editing the center island. And if you did want to see the panels on the back, it's just a matter of enabling the peninsula checkbox. So here you see it's already enabled, but if we uncheck that, that will remove the panels from the back of the cabinet. So in the case of an island cabinet, you may want that represented on both sides. Now we can also go a step further and adjust the accessories of the cabinets. So right now it's just set to a pull pipe, but if we wanted to customize that a bit, we could set them to these handles here. There we go. So that's been applied here for that island cabinet. And to easily apply it to other runs of cabinets, we can just simply right-click, do a repeat edit. And so as long as you haven't done any commands in between, the repeat edit should apply that change to the other cabinets that you like. So for instance, if you had erased the stove, for example, in between when you change these handles, then the repeat edit won't work in this case. Well, the cabinets will erase themselves, but you wouldn't get the cabinet handles that you applied to the island. And so you can also go ahead and adjust the overhangs of each edge of the countertop if you so desired. So it's just a matter of editing this cabinet, going to the countertop tab. And so right now we have an overhang of 1 inch on all sides. So if we wanted this side to be a little bit more just for the extra real estate when you're making meals, we could just choose I believe we want the right. We just simply set that to 4 inches. There we go. So it just increased the overhang on that one side, and you can see a preview here if you were in Plan of how it would look in 3D as well. And so we can also add legs to the bottom in case you wanted something more square rather than the round spheres you saw initially. And so everything you're adjusting here you'll see in this preview as well, so you can get a nice quick preview of what this cabinet is going to look like in 3D. And so if we wanted, let's change this to texture so I can show you in a bit more detail of what we're looking at. And now it is pretty bright now at the moment, so we can turn down the ambient light a bit. So where you can go to adjust the lighting of a room is going to Options, Mode Options, and then for that particular mode that you have active, you can then go down to Lighting, and in this case I'm just going to decrease the overall light being shown in this 3D view. So it's just the represented by the ambient light, just to reduce that a bit. And so these are just from the light sources above, but we could choose to reduce that brightness as well. So what we could do is edit this run of cabinets and change the texture if we wanted to. So if we wanted to change this from cherry medium, so since we're in the cabinet run tab, it will apply that to all of the cabinets in this run. So if we wanted something quite a bit different, we go to maple light. There we go. So you can see it will update it for all the cabinets in that run rather than having to do each one individually. But you could simply go to the base cabinet tab of the one that you'd edited and make any specific changes here if you wanted to. So go into the main floor, and you can also change the finish of the countertop as well. So if we were editing from plan and chose to edit the countertop of this, if we wanted to change it from all of the countertop at the perimeter of the kitchen, we could change this to tile, just so that it's a different material, and then we can go a step further, go back to our 3D view, and we can specify a different texture. So right now, this is just the preset for that. If we go back to the countertop, so for tile, this is just the default texture that we use. So if this wasn't something that you liked, we could choose to change that just by using the surface edit command. And now right now, the light, it's pretty blown out. It's kind of really bright at the moment, so we can go to electrical mode and we can reduce the brightness of some of these lights that we have in here. So for instance, for these can lights, if you go to edit a symbol with a light source, there should be a lights tab here, so we could go turn on custom and just simply reduce the brightness if we need to. So we brought that down to 4, and then use the repeat edit command on the other electrical symbols as well. There we go. So this should help make things not so bright. There we go. So that helped a fair bit. So if we did want to edit the surface and change the texture, we can either use the surface edit command and choose the surface, or we can just simply right-click in a 3D view, and it should be near the bottom of the right-click menu, just choosing that surface edit option. Now for ceramic, there are a number of options, but you could choose from all of the available options in our texture libraries. But in this case, I'm just going to choose something a little more generic. And then you can also edit the settings of that particular texture as well. So if this was fairly bright, we could make that a bit darker. And so it's just adjusting these settings here if you wanted to. Now that light directly above it, it's pretty bright, but we can also go to edit the countertop material over here, set it to tile, and so you'll see that same texture applied over here. There we go. So it's not as bright over here, so you can see the texture a bit more when I go to move the camera. And that about brings it to the end of the 45 minutes. I thank you all very much for joining me today. I hope you learned a lot. And if you did have any other questions, feel free to contact us here at support. We'd be glad to help you out. Our email address, it's support, so SUPPORT at softplantech.com. And yeah, we'd be glad to address your questions there. This was actually the last Friday Fundamentals session that we had scheduled this summer, but we post them all on our YouTube channel for you to take a look at. We've covered other topics such as designing kitchens, decks, bathrooms, as well as just using Softless in general. Thanks again, guys, and hey, I hope you all have a great weekend. All right, bye for now.